Hi everyone, this is Veronica. Today, the topic we are going to talk about is MTP Act, that is Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. In this lecture, we will explore the existing laws in our country for termination of pregnancy and what amendments have been drafted to bring changes into it. So, guys, this is a channel StudyIQ. If you're preparing for SSC, bank, or UPSC exams, our pen drive courses are also available. For that, you can visit our website for the additional information. So, in this lecture, I would be referring medical termination of pregnancy as MTP Act. So, please don't get confused. Before discussing the features of MTP Act, we will talk about certain cases where pregnant women seeking permission to abort the fetus approached the courts or Supreme Court, and what was the decision of Supreme Court in different cases. We will try to understand the reasons. So, only this year in 2017, a woman filed a petition in Supreme Court for abortion. This lady was 26-week pregnant. The reason she put forward to abort was on the ground that the fetus suffered from Down syndrome. Now, in such cases, Supreme Court usually appoints a medical board to examine the patient. Then the advice of medical board plays a crucial role that whether the permission for abortion will be given or not. So, in this case, medical board advised against the abortion. Now, here we have used a term Down syndrome. So, this has nothing to do with MTP Act, but still for your additional information, I would like to tell you what is Down syndrome. Now, Down syndrome basically is a genetic disorder. To understand why Down syndrome happens, you need to understand a little about chromosomes. What are chromosomes? They are thread-like structures within each cell and are made up of genes. Genes provide the information that determines everything about people, from hair color to whether they are girls or boys. Now see, most people, like I'm talking about normal human beings, they have 23 pair of chromosomes for a total 46. But a baby with Down syndrome has an extra chromosome. That means it has 47 chromosomes instead of 46. So let's see the next slide. Here in the picture 1, you can see these are the chromosomes of a human given, a normal human. They are 46 in number, that means they are 23 pairs. So if you see number 1, 2 and 3, 2 copies of chromosomes are present. But if we zoom chromosome 21, here 3 chromosomes are present. It is because of abnormal cell division. It is also known as trisomy 21. That is what we call Down syndrome, trisomy 21 or Down syndrome. This extra genetic material causes problems with the way the body develops. Now you can observe the distinguished features of the people suffering from Down syndrome. Even the IQ of such people is maximum of 50 as which had been reported till now. So in this picture you can see the differences that such people have a flat facial profile. They have a fold below their eyes. Their eyes are slanting, upward slanting eyes are present. In normal people, the nasal bridge is pointed, but in such people, they have a flat nasal bridge. And then the gap between the toes, first 2 toes of the feet, is wider. And in normal human beings, we have like 3 lines across our palm. But in the babies who are suffering from Down syndrome, they have one prominent crease running across their palm. But one thing you need to know for Down syndrome is it is not fatal. Such kids can be raised normally. Though there is no cure for Down syndrome, but early intervention programs with a team of therapists and special educators can treat them. Therefore, this is one of the reasons that Supreme Court refused for abortion in this case that we just discussed. Now see, firstly we are throwing light on the cases where Supreme Court denied the pleas to abort. Here is another case where the permission to abort was denied. It is a case of 35-year-old HIV positive woman, and she was 26 weeks pregnant. As I told you, in such cases court appoints medical committee to examine the person seeking abortion. Here report was prepared by doctors of AIMS. Abortion was denied because according to medical report, abortion at such a stage could prove fatal for the mother's life. One important fact was observed by court in such cases, that these kind of complicated legal battles delays the relief. How? See, for example, a woman approaches court after 20 weeks of pregnancy. Here, why I said 20 weeks, I will explain in my next slide. So, suppose this woman approaches court when she is after 20 weeks of pregnancy, say 26 weeks. Then, investigations by court will take some time. Constituting the team of doctors, medically examination of the lady will take place. After that, the decision will be announced. If at that time of petition, woman is 26 week pregnant, process might take 3-4 weeks more and she will become 30 weeks pregnant. So the complications regarding the health risk to life of women in such cases will also increase. So in the example that I gave you, I said 20 weeks. Why I mentioned 20 weeks? Because there is a MTP Act 1971 which already exists in our country. And according to this act, abortion in India is legal only up to 20 weeks of pregnancy under specific conditions and situations. So there is a legal cap over length of pregnancy till abortion could take place, that is 20 weeks. That is why if any women want to abort due to any reason, she needs the permission of the court, and court in such cases usually relies on the medical reports of the doctor, and obviously there is a legal reason, that MTP Act 1971 regulations. Another thing, when women file such a petition to abort, there are usually two strong arguments. Number one, if there is some abnormality detected in fetus, and another argument put forward in such cases is it is the woman's constitutional right to terminate the pregnancy. In many cases, we saw courts giving decision against the abortion. Reason that court states is, number one, fetus is living. That means it has right to life and we cannot terminate it like that. And secondly, they say unless there is some grave risk to the life of women, MTP Act of 1971 places a 20-week ceiling on termination of pregnancy. Now see, this is a very recent case. A 10-year-old raped by her uncle was not allowed to have abortion by Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court said it was basing its decision on the assessment of doctors who said that a medical termination was not safe either for the girl or for the fetus. She was 32 weeks pregnant. In this case, PGI Chandigarh doctors were asked to examine the girl. Moreover, there were some warnings that the child's body was not ready for childbirth, because as you can see here, she is just 10 years old. So till now, all the cases we discussed, one fact to you is cleared before we start discussing the features of MTP Act 1971. That is, a woman who have crossed 20-week limit need a judicial order to even get medically examined on their plea for abortion. So all the cases we discussed were where Supreme Court ruled against the abortion, citing obvious medical reasons. But there are also a number of cases where the law was challenged and Supreme Court gave a ruling in favor of abortion. So let's see this case. In 2015, permission to abort was granted to 14-year-old rape victim who was more than 20 weeks pregnant. And in this case, Supreme Court stated it was special case. That implies this decision won't be used to seek relief in other cases. Another case where permission was granted was a case of 22-year-old woman from Thane. This case happened this year only. Her fetus was detected with anencephaly. It is a defect where major portion of the brain or skull of embryo do not develop. So such a baby, if born, would not survive. Another case where permission was granted to a Mumbai woman, she was 24 weeks pregnant. Her fetus kidneys were not developed, so it will likely die after birth. So in these cases where there were serious medical condition, Supreme Court gave a ruling surpassing the existing laws. So these rulings passed by Supreme Court are challenging the existing law. So Article 142 here confers the power to Supreme Court for such orders. Now what Article 142 says, it provides that in order to do complete justice, Supreme Court will have the power to pass any judgment or order as is necessary. So please, you need to remember this article, that is Article 142. Now we will finally see the features of MTP Act 1971. Under this act, abortion is a qualified right. That is, it will have reasonable restrictions over it. One restriction you saw was 20 weeks gap. Okay. Pregnancy should be terminated by a legal practitioner only. This is the second feature. And opinion of one doctor is required if length of pregnancy does not exceed 12 weeks. Another, where the length of pregnancy exceeds 12 weeks but does not exceed 20 weeks, opinions of 2 registered practitioners are required. However, there is something more important to it. Even if it's legal, one woman cannot just go and abort within 20 weeks. There are 2 broadly defined conditions. What I mean to say is, like if a particular woman finds herself to be 2 weeks pregnant, she can just not go to the doctor and say that I'm not ready to take the responsibility. There should be some underlying medical conditions. So there are 2 broadly defined conditions. Number 1, if continuance of pregnancy would involve a risk to the life of women or grave injury to physical or mental health. Remember here the word physical or mental health. Second, if there is substantial risk that if child to be born would suffer from physical or mental abnormalities as to be seriously handicapped. There are 2 more features or cases you can say. Number 1, failure in case of failure of contraceptive. This is only in the case of married women. And number 2 is rape victim. But here too there is a ceiling of 20 weeks. Now see, when this act was implemented, it was believed most of the fetal defects could be detected by 20 weeks. However, in many cases, we have come up where some rare diseases are detected only after 20 weeks. Therefore, these acts need to be revised on this point. And we will see certain other limitations of this act. After this, even if a woman wants to abort within 20 weeks, there should be some underlying medical condition. But if analyzed, it is the duty of family, couple or the women to raise the child. It is their responsibility. So there should be minimum control of state in such cases. Moreover, seeing the socio-economic conditions of a country, we can't promise a dignified life to the child to be born. If a couple already has 2 or 3 kids and there is an unwanted pregnancy, then they should be allowed to terminate pregnancy, which is till now not permitted by the existing law. In such cases, many people go for illegal abortions, which are unsafe and unhygienic. A certain data reports 8% of mortality of mothers take place due to such illegal abortion across the country. So, next important thought to be given after this is on when does life begin. As in certain cases we saw court gave one of the reason is right to life against the abortion. So what we need to rethought after all these points that we discussed earlier, that when does life begin? Because even for biologists there is a debate. Some says life begin right after conception, and some say life begins after the birth, and even there are a panel which says when embryo has substantially developed, then only the life begins. So it is a debatable part that when does the life begins. And now we will discuss about this draft MTP bill 2014. Now there is a new bill drafted in 2014, draft MTP bill 2014. So let's see what are the main features of this bill. So to start with, number 1, draft says to increase the limit of abortion from 20 weeks to 24 weeks. Another important point, it seeks to amend section 3 of MTP bill 1971, which is already existing in our country, to provide that length of pregnancy shall not apply in 2 cases, and those 2 cases are the case of rape victim, and secondly, if a fetus is diagnosed with substantial abnormalities. After that, it will allow a woman to take an independent decision, obviously in consultation with a registered doctor. And moreover, in our country, it has been noticed that there is massive shortage of doctors and trained midwives. So in this draft, they're trying to give a license to Ayurvedic and Unani doctors to carry out abortions. So till now we have discussed both MTP draft bill and already existing law of MTP Act 1971. Now let's try to analyze why there is a need to amend it. See, it has been noticed that fetal abnormalities show up only by 18 weeks, and according to the existing law, there is a ceiling of 20 weeks. So there is a 2-week window provided to the mother and to the doctor to decide whether the fetus or the baby to be born is normal or abnormal. And it is seen that this window gap is very small to decide for the doctor whether there is some kind of abnormality or not. So that's why in this draft bill they are trying to increase this window from 20 weeks to 24 weeks. Moreover, there are some legal experts that have argued that medical science and technology has made a tremendous progress, and 20-week ceiling is totally redundant, and that conclusive determination of fetal abnormality is possible in most cases after 20 weeks of gestational age also. After this, in present era, we are talking about women empowerment, right? So we need to give women the reproductive rights, the sexual rights, the legal protection against sex crimes and sex choices. So it should be her choice or consent whether within the time or the ceiling of 24 weeks what has been drafted now, she wants to abort or not. And choice could depend on any of her personal reasons. And by doing this, we are trying to reduce the fertility rate as a whole. And next point is, according to certain data which I already discussed, and this is the data from Registrar General of India of unsafe abortions. Okay, Registrar General of India, and they say unsafe abortions contribute 8% to maternal deaths. Therefore, making out to amend this act will help people to seek safe abortions, and people won't go for illegal abortions which are unhealthy and they cause a lot of mortality of mothers. This draft bill is yet to see the light of the day. Let's see when it's get amended, because this is really very good step to empower women and in any way to stop the illegal abortions. Now we have discussed everything about MTP Act. Now this is a recapitulation. I think you will be able to answer these questions now, that why this was in the news. We discussed several cases and what are the court's rationale. In both the cases we have seen whether they have given a decision against the abortion or in the favor of abortion, and what are the reasons let down by the court. We discussed the features of already existing law, that is MTP Act 1971, and after that when it was challenged in the Supreme Court and the Article 142. After that we discussed what are the this new features of this draft MTP Bill 2014 and what does it provide, and after that we discussed why it is essential to change the MTP law. I hope you will be able to answer these questions now. Try them. And thank you. And this is my contact information. For any queries regarding my lecture, you can mail me. My email is given, or for updates of my videos, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you.